Let's dive into what was said yesterday regarding Zoran Memdani. We're going to go ahead and roll the clip. It's from an interview where Trump was asked about Zoran Memdani. Your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon. Zoran Memdani, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. What is your message to the communist Zoran Memdani? Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country. But if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send them money. We provide all the resources needed to run a government. And by the way, they already get about 3 times what you get. Ron. If you look at the per capita numbers, Florida gets 1/3 of what New York receives. Why don't you give us those numbers? Yeah. Well, that's what we should send him. Right. And sometimes people say Florida gets more because they count Social Security recipients. But that isn't money going to the state. Those are just seniors who live here. If they moved to North Carolina, the funds would be counted there. It has no direct interaction with the state government. The reality is, New York City and state governments receive substantially more than we do. Right? We're going to be watching that very carefully. And a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. We're going to look at everything. So, this is how Zoran Memdani responded. And I'm actually curious what you make of this. Ryan. I found his response to be quite interesting. He says, the President of the U.S. just threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, put in a detention camp, and deported. Not because I've broken any law, but because I will refuse to let ICE terrorize our city. His statements don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker who refuses to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, they will come for you. We will not accept this intimidation. Then he goes on to talk about Eric Adams, saying, Trump's included praise for Eric Adams and his authoritarian threats is unsurprising. But it highlights the urgency of bringing an end to this mayor's time in City Hall. He continues by talking about destroying the social safety net, kicking millions of New Yorkers off healthcare, and enriching billionaire donors at the expense of working families, framing it as a scandal that Eric Adams echoes this president's division, distraction, and hate. Ryan. The reason I found that statement so interesting is his pivot. He immediately shifts to the social safety net, to Eric Adams kicking New Yorkers off healthcare, and to billionaire donors. Essentially, he pivots to class warfare. Yeah. He pivots to class warfare. Essentially. And when Trump was asked that question by the very MAGA-aligned Benny Johnson, I think, in his own mind, the strategy was clear. What they're trying to do is get Memdani to talk about immigration as much as possible. Because as unpopular as Donald Trump's approach with ICE is in a blue city like New York, the immigration policies of the Biden administration, and the way Eric Adams initially handled them, were also deeply unpopular. Which is why Eric Adams then pivoted himself. So I think Republicans see an opportunity to talk about immigration over and over again. Memdani, in his statement, pivoted away from that. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Right. I think that's exactly right. Because as Steve Bannon himself said, Memdani is the first populist who has successfully connected populism to affordability. That is a huge indictment of our political class across the spectrum that this guy is the first one who has been able to do it. And so, I think Trump and Bannon recognize that they're vulnerable to him on that issue. Prices are going up. Your energy bills are going to be going up pretty soon thanks to this big, beautiful bill, etc. So yes, they think they're on better ground if they can get him back to fighting on cultural issues. They want to be back in 2018, 2019, 2020, where they're fighting Democrats on culture. Yes. Absolutely. That's where Bannon and Trump feel comfortable. And when Zoran was tweeting things about how defunding the police was queer liberation, which he doesn't talk about anymore, they love that. That's where Trump wants to be. He wants to bring that version of the Democratic Party back and force him into that box. The problem for Trump is A. Mamdani is not really going to take that bait. And B. On the issue of immigration, Trump is losing the public on his own signature issue by being so over the top. If you look at the polling, independents are now swinging away again. People have very fluid views on immigration policy. But then he and Stephen Miller are betting on being the lesser of two evils. Right? That even if their popularity dips, the Democrats' popularity with things like sanctuary cities, for example, which are massive pull factors, will be even lower. But what he's letting Zoran do is just defend against masked ICE agents scooping people off the street. The public looks at that and says, yeah. What are you doing? This is not how we do things. Especially with all these people now impersonating ICE agents across the country. It's becoming a legitimate crime and safety problem. So if you let Democrats just say, we're against the masked agents doing fascism on the streets, then you don't force them to grapple with their own unpopular immigration policies. Right. And I think the Trump bet is that as long as Mamdani is talking about immigration, then Trump, Republicans, and probably Eric Adams as well, see an opportunity to talk about sanctuary cities. For Mamdani, as long as Trump is boosting Eric Adams and attacking him, Mamdani is just growing in popularity in New York. That very well may be the case. The poll that came out yesterday showed him hypothetically beating Cuomo. We got the final margin yesterday as well, which was a 12-point rout of Andrew Cuomo. Unbelievable. The more that Eric Adams or Cuomo gets associated with Trump, and the more Mamdani is seen as the anti-Trump, the more it helps him. Right. And finally, did you see this apology from Kirsten Gillibrand? Reading from Politico here, Kirsten Gillibrand apologized to Mamdani on Monday after she falsely claimed in a radio interview that the presumptive Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City had made references to global jihad. The junior senator and the mayoral candidate spoke by phone, and Gillibrand's team provided a readout saying she apologized for mischaracterizing Mamdani's record and for her tone. This was in reference to a Brian Lehrer segment where a caller asked Gillibrand about holding Mamdani to account for glorifying Hamas. Ryan. This Brian Lehrer segment was the call heard round the left. It was everywhere. Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, it was bonkers. Go listen to it. She sounds completely unhinged. Brian Lehrer gives her 3 or 4 opportunities to correct herself, to add a little bit of complexity or humility. And she's like, no. Absolutely not. At one point, she accuses him of wanting to wage global jihad, which actually proves Zoran's original point. The reason he gave that long, nuanced answer about why he wouldn't condemn the phrase, globalizing the Intifada, was, as he said, because you're asking me to condemn a phrase that, to Arabic speakers, means, globalize the resistance. You can't ask an Arabic speaker to condemn the word resistance. It would be like saying that because the Trump administration tweets "Shalom" whenever they arrest a pro-Palestine protester, that pro-Palestine people should feel assaulted and therefore nobody should say "Shalom" anymore. The logic is absurd. Gillibrand then proves his point that the entire line of attack is racist by confusing jihad with intifada. To her, it doesn't matter. They're just scary-sounding Arabic words. And so, after the entire political class and media tried to get him to condemn the phrase, he wouldn't. And Gillibrand winds up being the one who apologizes. I don't know if it's a watershed moment, but it's definitely a data point. They're going to have to bend the knee. They are slowly but surely realizing it. Even Kathy Hochul told Gillibrand that there's no room for this racism in our state. If you've lost Kathy Hochul, that's probably when she was like, okay, I need to apologize for this. It's over. This entire episode, from Trump's threats to Gillibrand's stunning apology, feels like a significant turning point. The old political playbook, filled with scare tactics and cultural wedge issues, is starting to show its cracks. New leaders are demonstrating an ability to sidestep these traps and pivot the conversation back to the core issues that resonate with everyday people: affordability, healthcare, and basic human dignity. Gillibrand's apology wasn't just a personal retraction. It symbolized the establishment being forced to reckon with a rising political force that refuses to be defined or intimidated by outdated narratives. It's a powerful sign that the ground beneath our feet is shifting. And that true connection with the people, not fear, will ultimately shape our future. If you found this discussion insightful, please hit that like button and leave a comment below. It truly helps us reach more people. And to get access to our full, ad-free shows delivered right to your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com. Your support is what fuels the future of independent media.